I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with author Carl Berryman, who is joined by his wife, Barb. He is a compelling voice in speculative geopolitics, bringing to life a chilling but plausible scenario of a future conflict in his riveting book, 2023, World War III. We're delighted to have Carl join us today on Spotlight. We thank the folks at Authors Tranquility Press for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Carl and Barb, welcome. Welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you.
Good to see you today. Carl, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I have a bachelor's degree in zoology, a doctor's degree in veterinary medicine, a master's degree in public health and epidemiology. I'm a retired Army lieutenant colonel with 22 years in the Army. I went to work as an epidemiologist in the state health department. I enjoyed the outdoors above all, hunting and fishing until I became a geriatric. Still love to shoot all I can. Been married to the most wonderful, beautiful, fantastic woman in the world for 58 years.
Wow.
What can I say?
You're living a good life. Well, I wanted to talk about your background first because it plays into the fact that you know something about war. You are a career soldier, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
I put 22 years in, had 13 tours in 22 years.
Yep, that's quite a resume. You've got skin in the game, as we like to say. So 2023, World War III. We're almost there right now with what's going on in Ukraine and Russia and the proxy war we have taking place there right now. Tell me a little bit about your ideas for World War III and how you came up with this concept for the book.
Well, I conceived it many years ago and actually put pen to paper many years ago, and it's all coming true as we live. It deals primarily in Korea as the world deteriorates. North Korea actually invades South Korea. The United States stands by. It's a story of political intrigue as well as we move government-wise farther to the left. We are not well prepared, as you can see from the Biden administration. What will happen when North Korea invades? What will be our reaction? What will China be as they explode out of their borders? Where will we put our forces?
It's a frightening prospect, and we're so dependent on China. So many of our goods are manufactured there, correct?
Yes, indeed. The basic story deals with a veterinary pathologist who becomes a physician and is in Korea when the war starts. It's a story also of his survival as he has to live in South Korea. Actually, the character morphs into a soldier committing with several South Korean Rangers, committing their acts of war on the North Koreans.
In your book, you talk about China's grand strategy. China's grand strategy. Can you tell us what that is, basically?
China is increasingly militaristic. I am sure they're sitting back laughing at us as we deteriorate militarily and economically and politically. I have no doubt that sooner or later China will invade North Korea. China will invade North Korea. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, dear. Go ahead. And yes, I said North Korea, but also Taiwan. I think Taiwan will be their primary focus.
Yeah.
What will we do? Given their new missile technology, I understand they are a grave threat to our Western Pacific Fleet. What will we do if the fleet is sunk by the Chinese as we go to Taiwan's defense?
Do you think our current state of preparation or preparedness on the West is sufficient? Do you think we're prepared for such a conflict?
Do you think we are prepared as a country for such a conflict?
No, in no way. I do not think we are prepared. Look at the fact that we can't even meet our enlistment requirements for the United States Army.
Yeah. There's a lot of disheartening going on when it comes to our military as well. You know, a lot of the soldiers are deflated by a commander-in-chief who falls on all fours in front of them at the United States Air Force graduation, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, yeah. It was shocking, absolutely shocking, you know. Yeah, yeah. What do you think the West could do to better prepare for the scenario you predict?
Well, first of all, elect a president who is willing to prepare and defend the United States and our allies. That would be the first step. Reconstitute the military and make sure our enemies understand we will extract a terrible price should they misbehave.
Do you feel the Chinese somehow unleashed COVID on the West?
Chinese culture believes that they are the most superior in the world, dating back 5,000 years, and that gives them the right to rule the world. I think they will do that militarily. I don't think they will hesitate that in a moment of weakness, they will act. Did I answer your question?
In part, but do you think COVID was a first strike?
Do you think COVID was a first strike, or was it a test?
I think it was an accidental release from the Wuhan laboratory. But in our case, the way we acted, I think, was a test. I think our government wanted to know how we would react in consequence to the presence of the virus.
How do you think we did on that test? Do you think we passed or do you think we failed?
I think the public was misinformed. It was grossly blown out of proportion in our reaction. The public should have been better prepared, better informed, and reacted accordingly.
Tell me a little bit about your writing career. When did you start writing?
Tell me a little bit about your.
When did you start writing?
It's been over 20 years. Actually, I wrote my first novel about 40 years ago and just threw it away. It wasn't anything in particular, but I started writing 2023 back in the 1990s.
And what have you published so far? Is this your first book that's been published, or do you have other books?
No, this was the first one published.
You have other books.
I have other books, yes. 2025, Divided We Fall. Divided We Fall is actually my favorite.
Is that a sequel to 2023?
2025 is a sequel to 2023.
Gotcha.
In it, the attacks occurs, the Chinese invade our west coast, and it is our reaction. It's a story of survival of a family here in Wyoming. And it's actually a manual, if you want to look at it that way, a manual of survival.
What is Divided We Fall about?
Divided We Fall, we elect a very left-wing socialist president, a tyrannical president, and the Western states begin to succeed in response to his leftist move, if you want to call it that. So it's a story here in the West of the Western states seceding and doing a response to his military intent to invade the Western states. The states of Western Minnesota, the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming began to secede and form their own army in response to his belligerence.
Amazing. It's an amazing story, and it doesn't seem implausible. It seems like it's very plausible.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How do you think the United States would react to aggression on the part of China?
To aggression on
the part of China?
I think we will probably send in the Western Pacific Fleet, which will be sunk.
Yeah. Seems like our Navy is very out of date, correct?
I think our Navy, like the rest of our armed forces, have been, how should I say it, not demilitarized, but have a very severe problem with.
Systemically eroded.
Yeah.
Yes, that's good. Thank you,
Yeah.
dear.
No,
Systemically eroding. And the mentality, the outlook, the mental state of our sailors. We had a sailor friend here who had put 6 years in the Navy and was well on his way to higher rank and couldn't stand it and retired, just resigned, got out.
yeah. I think one of the things I liked most when I was out west last year and in Wyoming was that cowboy spirit that still seems to exist.
He loved the cowboy spirit of Wyoming.
Well, come out, move out. You're welcome. There's plenty of room.
It's a great area. It's a beautiful state, that's for sure. And it really, live free or die should not be New Hampshire's motto. It should be Wyoming's motto instead. I really feel that way, particularly the way New Hampshire votes.
Well, we still believe in the Constitution as it was written by the founding fathers out here. The average Wyoming household possesses between 12 and 20 firearms. We know 14-year-old girls that go deer hunting with their dads out here. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. It should be a part of all young people's upbringing. That's for sure. In your book, you argue that the only way to prevent World War III is to plan for it now. What should we do to plan for World War III now?
Absolutely. You are right. We must plan for it now.
What type of planning?
What do we do?
What should we do?
Reconstitute the military first, expand the military budget, recruit actively people who are militarily oriented, people who are physically active, people who wanted to defend their country, who believe in the Constitution.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how hard that is to find.
He's having a tough time with that because it's hard to watch younger groups of people today who don't even know who the founding fathers were, much less know anything about the Constitution, since we do not even teach civics.
Right. It seems like there's so much ignorance out there on the part of the electorate that people don't know and they don't care.
There seems to be ignorance out there. People don't know and they do not care.
Well, I think you're absolutely right there. We were watching Fox News the other day, and the interviewer was asking who was the first president of the United States, and people couldn't say it, couldn't answer it.
Amazing. There should be a basic United States literacy test for people to vote. If you don't know who the first president of the United States was, you shouldn't be allowed to vote.
We'll vote for that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What were the challenges in writing the book, 2023? Did you have some challenges?
What were the challenges in writing 2023?
Actually, I didn't have any challenges. I wrote it out of fun. I believe it's coming true.
It sure seems like it's coming true.
Part of his existence is reading journals, reading history. He enjoys putting that all together and then projecting what he sees ahead of us.
Yeah.
And that's how this book came about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you guys think is behind the war in Ukraine and the American involvement? It doesn't seem like we can prop up Ukraine forever. It seems like Russia will eventually succeed, right?
What do you think is behind the war that's going on between Ukraine and Russia, and what do you think is going to be a result?
I think NATO made a tragic, classic error in expanding to the Ukraine and trying to encroach upon the Russian border. We should have left a buffer zone between the Russians and NATO. That buffer no longer exists, and Russia feels very threatened, and rightfully so. NATO has expanded from 13 to 28 nations now. And if I were Russian, I would be very concerned about that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's certainly a lot of unanswered questions for sure when it comes to the conflict and how Russia will ultimately respond if America keeps on fueling the war there. Tell me a little bit about the process of writing the book. What was it like writing the book? I know you said it came easy, you enjoyed it, but it was based, like your wife said, upon the journals you read and so forth?
What was the process of writing the book? The nitty gritty. How do you write?
I just sit down and think, put pen to paper.
Yeah.
He's a paper starter.
Right.
Reworks it, and thinks about it, and then comes back and reworks it, and then commits it to type.
What do you guys think about the dependence we have on China where it comes to, almost everything you buy nowadays says it's made in China, from our phones to our medicines? How do we escape that type of economic stranglehold?
How do we escape economic stranglehold that China has on us?
It will be very difficult, and I do not see us escaping that stranglehold without going to war. I think American businesses look for the best way to produce goods at the least possible cost. We need to bring our manufacturing capabilities home, get them out of China. And I don't see that happening. I'm not trying to answer these questions.
I think we need to give up a little bit on the green machine that keeps being stuffed down our throat.
Right.
We have to have our own manufacturing basis that is stable. Let's face it, America is the most creative environment that one could ever ask for. So let's admit it and put it to use for ourselves, and then we can extend it to the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And why did Carl write the book? As a warning to Americans?
Did you write the book as a warning to Americans?
Yes, it's a wake-up call. If I could get people to read it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a wake-up call. What's your prediction for the election in 2024?
That's a tough question. I would like to see a more educated electorate. I would like to see the American public realize what's going on, what they are voting for, and why. And I don't know that's going to happen. There is so much political ballistics out there, so much rhetoric that is nonsense in action that I really couldn't predict. Our son predicts Biden will win. Excuse me, Trump will win the Republican nomination, but will lose the election. I don't know. I am not prepared to make any predictions myself.
Yeah. DeSantis has quite a resume. He's a soldier. He's Ivy League educated. He's a governor of one of the biggest states. He's got a great track record during COVID and economically as well. What do you think of DeSantis, Ron DeSantis?
What do you think about Ron DeSantis?
I think he has potential. I think he will probably be a good president. I think he is aware of most of the situations occurring in the United States and in the world. I would have no problems voting for him.
Do you think Biden is too old to be president?
Do I think what?
Biden is too old to be president?
I think Biden generally is a disaster.
Yeah. I think a lot of people agree with you, that's for sure. Like I said, when you're on all fours in front of the United States Air Force Academy on graduation day, what happens to the rank and file? What happens when you see the commander-in-chief on his knees? It hits you psychologically, that's for sure. What else are you going to be working on? What other writing projects do you have in store for us, Carl?
What other writing projects do you have in store?
She's sitting on 3.
There are 2 manuscripts that aren't even published yet.
Wonderful.
And it's just it's hard work, but it's worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're
Well,
follow-on novels.
they're both novels, the new books you're writing.
Yes, they are.
Tell us a little bit about them. Like, what are they about?
What are 20, 30, and 35 about?
Survival,
Yeah,
in a word,
yeah,
the potential
absolutely.
for invasion of the United States.
Yeah,
What do we do?
yeah. Well, you've sounded the alarm here in the United States. Hopefully, people are listening. The name of the book is 2023 World War III. There's a sequel to it. It's called 2025. And it also talks about a futuristic world where we have a very aggressive China taking over. Before we leave you today, Carl and Barb, anything you'd like the audience to know?
Anything you'd like the audience to know?
I don't know when we will publish the follow-on books, but they deal with the Chinese invasion. From my reading, I gather China is lying about their population. They claim to be 1.7 billion.
Yeah.
I think they're closer to 2 billion. I understand that they have 20% of the world's population, but only can produce 9% of their food needs. They are going to have to expand. And where will they expand? North America is the garden spot of the planet.
Right. Well, it's a scary thought, but we do appreciate you both sounding the alarm, putting forth some, stark realities that Americans need to confront. They need to get their noses out of their phone, and they need to start acting like Americans again, men acting like men, women acting like women, answering the call of duty and honor to serve their country as well. Carl and Barb, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much, sir.
And I salute you for your work, Carl. And Barb, real pleasure meeting you. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.
I'll visit it.